Hello and welcome. Today our guest is Alexander Grace from Red Pill Interviews. Alexander, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I understand that today you want to talk about when it's appropriate to share your emotions with a woman. Is that correct?
Yes, but first I think it's important to talk about when it's inappropriate to share your emotions.
How could it be inappropriate to share your emotions? Surely it's necessary to preserve your mental health.
Right, and this is the angle that most people look at it, and they're correct, but it's not the whole picture. The basic argument goes that talking about your emotions is good for your mental health, and so it's a positive thing that men are now being encouraged to share their emotions and speak more honestly about their feelings.
So you agree that it's a good thing?
I can agree that it's not a good idea to keep your emotions bottled up inside. Communicating your feelings to others is an important step to take on the road to self-acceptance and emotional integration. But it's too simplistic to say that it's always a good idea to share your emotions. Sometimes the consequences can be very damaging.
What kind of situations are you referring to?
Well, it's important to be aware of context. For example, you don't start sharing your deepest fears and insecurities with a stranger you only met 10 minutes ago. That sort of behavior is weird.
But why? If he's comfortable to share what he's going through, what's the harm in opening up to a stranger?
Because it's terrible social calibration. If you've only met somebody 10 minutes ago, then you're not going to have any trust or intimacy established. You're sharing very personal and private information with someone that you barely know. It's inappropriate and you'll make the other person feel uncomfortable.
Does that happen often? I can't picture many people offering up information about their private feelings too quickly. Mostly people keep that sort of thing to themselves.
Generally speaking, that's true, but there is one area where men make this mistake again and again and don't understand where they went wrong. That's in the early stages of a relationship. It could be when you first approached a girl, or just in the early stages of dating.
So you're saying that at the beginning parts of a relationship, men are too quick to share their emotions. Why would they do that?
There are two main reasons for this, and the first one that I want to talk about is that men don't really understand what women want. They've probably heard a woman say something like, "I want a guy who's sensitive and emotionally open and talks about his feelings," and thinks that by making himself emotionally available, he's going to make himself more attractive and desirable.
But you're saying this is not the case.
That's right. The early stages of a relationship aren't meant to be full of deep emotional talks about your fears and insecurities. It's meant to be playful, fun, and flirtatious.
But won't women want to know your emotional side?
Eventually, but in the early stages, she wants you to remain a bit of a mystery. She wants to guess and fantasize about you, let her imagination carry her away for a while. The worst part is, if you start sharing your deep emotional side too quickly, then you give her nothing to chase, nothing to strive for.
That sounds like a lot of effort. Won't women appreciate a man who doesn't play games and just lays it all out on the table?
No. That's thinking like a man who wants his dating life to be efficient. He wants all of the details as soon as possible so that he can make an informed decision as to whether or not the girl's worth pursuing. He wants to know whether or not it's worth his time.
But women don't think that way?
Well, some do, but not many. Not even all men think that way. We're talking in generalizations, but most commonly, women want to put in effort to find out personal information. Before she sees a man's emotions, she wants to feel like she's earned it.
I think that some men might be uncomfortable at the idea of making women jump through hoops before they open up.
Well, those men are missing the point. It's like what we talked about earlier. It's weird to share your emotions when the context is not appropriate. When men share their emotions with women too quickly, what they're actually communicating is their low sense of self-worth, and that's not attractive to women.
I don't understand that last part. Surely if a man's opening up about his emotions, that's a sign of confidence.
Not at all. Your emotional side should be private and personal. You should value it so highly that only very special and select people get to see it. If you start sharing your emotions with somebody, talking about your deepest fears and insecurities, you should make sure that you've thoroughly vetted that person to ensure that they're trustworthy, kind, loyal, capable of understanding you. If you're indiscriminate about who you share your emotions with, it sends the entirely wrong message.
And what message is that?
That you don't value yourself. If you share your emotions with just anyone, what does that say about you? That you'll give away the most private and personal parts about yourself to anyone, even if they've done nothing to earn it or demonstrate that they're a worthy person.
The way you describe it makes it sound like men should consider their emotional side to be some kind of treasure, or reward, and that people will happily dedicate effort towards sharing in that reward.
And that's how women want it. If you spill out all of your feelings on the first date with a woman, she's not going to be attracted to you. She might feel sorry for you and show you kindness, but she won't consider you a high-value male. She'll be thinking to herself, wow, this is a really intense level of intimacy, and I haven't really done anything to earn this. This guy clearly doesn't value himself much.
So what should the man do?
Demonstrate self-control. Don't go sharing all of your emotions on the first date. Keep things light and playful.
But what happens when she begins to suspect that your existence is superficial, that you really have no emotional depth? What do you do when she starts asking questions?
That's good. It shows that she's invested in knowing more about you. As a general rule, never share personal information about your emotional side unless she's really worked for it.
But eventually, you should start talking about your feelings.
Eventually, yes, but keep it going as long as you can. You have to keep things light and playful. If you're just flat out refusing to answer questions about yourself, that's weird, but so long as you can keep it a game, keep going, because the longer the game goes, the more invested she's going to be in winning it. The prize, of course, is knowing you at a deeper, more emotional level.
There are some guys within the Red Pill community who say that it is never a good idea to share your emotions with a woman. That at best she'll lose attraction for you, and at worst she'll use that information against you.
Honestly, if you're in a relationship with a woman like that, then you probably overlooked some red flags and should have done a more thorough job in selecting a partner. Now, how to spot and select a quality partner is a big topic, and we'll save that for a future video. But I think it's ridiculous to assert that you should never share your emotions with your partner. At that point, you've got to ask yourself, why bother having a relationship at all?
Well, lots of men do see it that way, that there is no point.
But it's like we talked about in our video on vulnerability. Sharing your emotions and your vulnerabilities with somebody and having them well received with love and kindness is one of the greatest pleasures of life.
But it's not like these guys aren't speaking from experience. They tried opening up to a woman, and they got burned.
Well, like I said, perhaps they didn't vet the girl properly. Maybe there were signs that the woman was of poor character, and the wise thing would have been to realize that it was not safe to share your vulnerable, emotional side with a woman like that. Otherwise, potentially they didn't present their emotions in the correct context.
Explain that. What do you mean by the correct context?
Well, it's important to know that you can share an emotion in two different ways. One way will generate attraction from a woman, and the other will cause her to lose attraction.
Okay, let's start with the way to share an emotion that will generate attraction.
It's similar to what we spoke about before, about making your emotions the prize. You calmly explain to your partner that you have emotions that you want to share, and that you trust her to receive them in kindness and love. You can tell her how impressed you've been with how she's received your emotions in the past, and how glad you are that you found a woman of such quality character that you can trust her and you can safely open up with her.
I see how this is working. You're setting a context where she's all these great things if she receives your emotions with love and care.
That's right. In her mind, she's thinking, wow, he really trusts me with something delicate and personal. I want to make sure I handle this well so I can maintain his good opinion of me.
At the same time, you're also setting a context where seeing your emotional side is the prize.
That's right. At all times, you're reiterating that it's a privilege to see you open up, that witnessing your emotional side is a valuable experience that anyone would be grateful to have.
Are you sure that this isn't going to be seen as condescending? Won't she resent that you're placing yourself in such a high place and painting yourself as this prize that needs to be won?
Definitely not. She will love it because it reinforces that you're a high-value male, and by association, by being in a relationship with you, she's a high-value female. Seeing you treat your own emotions with care and pride will be a big self-esteem boost for her.
Okay then, so what would be a bad way to share an emotion? A way that would make her lose attraction for you?
It's when you share your emotions in such a way that demonstrates low value. You don't want to come across as needy or clingy. If you're sharing your emotions in such a way that attempts to push responsibility for them onto her, then you've gone wrong. At all times you want to be absolutely clear, these are your emotions. You're dealing with them. You don't need her to fix you. You're just sharing.
But what if she wants to offer help in some way?
Well, that's fine to accept help, and in the later stages of a long-term relationship, it's normal for partners to help each other out. The important distinction is that you're not demanding anything from her. If you make the main topic of the conversation her, it's going to freak her out and you'll lose your strength as an independent man. The way that you talk about sharing emotions makes it seem like you're just keeping her informed and you don't really require any participation from her. But what if the emotion is directly tied to her? Like, what sort of emotion are you talking about? Well, just take an ordinary insecurity. Maybe you're worried that she's not as interested in you as she used to be. I don't know how you could talk about that without making it about her. Okay, well, let's use that as an example. What you don't want to do is communicate your emotions in the form of accusations. You don't love me anymore. Why don't you pay more attention to me? Why don't we have more sex? These kind of statements are dripping with insecurity and will likely make her less attracted to you. So what should he do? Set the proper context like we spoke about before and give her a description of what you're going through. Say something like, I've been noticing I've been feeling a lot more insecurity recently. I don't know if it's because of some changes in the dynamics of our relationship or if my pre-existing insecurities are being triggered by some new situations. But I'm looking into it and I'm excited to know what the psychological cause of this emotion is so that I can overcome it and heal any areas of weakness inside myself. And you think handling it like that won't cause her to lose attraction? No, because even though you've openly spoken about your insecurity, you've done it from a place of calm confidence that demonstrates your high value. But it's still so detached from any real emotional experience. What if, while talking about this, you break down and start crying right in front of her? Again, the same principles apply. You just need to provide the proper context. So explain to her how you think it will be healing to feel into an emotion and have a release. You're not a child blubbering and tearing at her clothes saying, I need you, I need you. You're an adult, having a normal adult experience, and it's a good opportunity for her to demonstrate her worthiness as a partner by being there for you. And what if she handles it badly? What if, even after you provided all the context that you've talked about, she shames you for having emotions and starts to detach herself? Then it's time for a very honest conversation. You need to explain to her that her behavior was not acceptable from a partner, that you expected your emotions to be handled with love and care, and that she really let you down. So basically you tell her off. Not really. If you get all angry, then that's just going to demonstrate how little control you have over yourself. It shows how dependent you are on her reactions, which is not the behavior of a high-value male. Calmly, but without apology, explain how her behavior fell short of your standards, and then listen openly to her explanation. What kind of explanation will she give? Well, if she's not as self-aware as you, it might freak her out to see another person's emotions. It might be too intense a mirror and make her aware of emotions inside herself that she's not ready to deal with. If she's not used to self-development, then this area might be completely new to her, and you'll need to guide her on her own path of emotional integration. Or maybe she wants you to be Superman. Maybe she wants you to give and never have emotional needs of your own. Maybe she's just punishing you. Again, depending on the quality of the woman, that could sometimes be it. Now, way back at the start of the conversation, you said that there were 2 reasons why men were too quick to share their emotions. Right, and we already spoke about men's mistaken belief that sharing their emotions, regardless of context, will make them more attractive to women. Yes, and I want to know the other reason. Sometimes men can't help themselves because they have an intense emotional need to be cared for and loved. This isn't anything to be ashamed of. Like 99% of the population, most men didn't receive adequate care and love when they were children. And while you shouldn't be ashamed, it is something that you need to be aware of because unless you get it under control, it will prevent you from forming emotionally healthy relationships with women. The way that you describe it makes it sound like men want their girlfriends to mother them. That's quite an accurate way of putting it. But most women don't want to mother their boyfriends. They want an equal, or ideally someone they can look up to. But then, how can a man avoid this? If he genuinely has emotional needs that weren't met during childhood, doesn't he need a romantic partner to fulfill them? That's a common misconception, and it's largely promoted in the culture. It's an absolute disaster though, because it only makes sense inside the male fantasy. He wants a woman who's like his mother, who cooks and cleans for him, who takes care of his emotional needs and tells him he's valuable, and he also wants her to be his girlfriend, who's submissive to his leadership and enthusiastic about meeting his sexual needs. Are you saying that that fantasy is unrealistic? Of course it is. Women don't want to mother the men that they're dating. A man who needs to be mothered is not attractive. So then, what options are left to men? We need to stop thinking of romantic relationships as the only relationships available to us in terms of getting our emotional needs met. One of the great things about MGTOW and the general Red Pill community is that it's men talking about intensely personal stuff with other men. Men are sharing, being open, and even being vulnerable, and it's very healing. I think that you're painting too rosy a picture of the Red Pill community. Mostly it's just guys sharing secrets on how to get laid. I don't see it that way. There's so much more to it than that. Even just talking about women and sexual desire can be a very vulnerable experience, and the fact that men are reaching out and asking for advice from other guys, that's very powerful action that they're taking. I do take your point though, that just chatting anonymously with other guys on the internet is not likely to fill the void of unmet emotional needs left over from your mother. So where can a man turn then, if not to his romantic partner? If a man is plagued by the problem of compulsively sharing his emotions and becoming needy and dependent on his romantic partners, then he needs to see a therapist. Now, all the stigma around seeing a psychologist is complete nonsense. It doesn't make you less than a man, it doesn't make you weak, in fact it makes you strong. Strong enough to own your emotional needs and be proactive about getting them met. So instead of dumping all of your emotions on your girlfriend, you talk about them with your therapist. It goes so much deeper than that. The dynamic between a patient and his counselor is extremely complex and would require so much explanation that we couldn't possibly cover it in this video. Suffice to say that a therapist often becomes a surrogate parent and provides a safe place for you to work through all of your unmet emotional needs so that you can ultimately transcend them. So instead of demanding that your girlfriend be your therapist, you let your therapist be your therapist. Exactly. A man who does this will not need to burden his partner with emotional neediness. Why would he? He's getting it sorted out elsewhere, independently. He's proactive and in control. And when he does share his emotions with his partner, he does it without the dependency that would cause her to lose attraction for him. Interesting. Well, I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Do you think you should never share your emotions with a woman? Or do you think it's just necessary to provide a proper context first? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, be sure to hit that like button and make sure you've subscribed to the channel. I put a lot of work into these videos and I really hope that you get some value out of them. If you do, maybe you'll consider supporting the creator. The best way to do that is through my Patreon page. There's a link in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching and we'll catch you again next time.